welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. This is the continuation of a very detailed July garden tour that I'm doing. I broke the front garden space down into 3 videos. There's already 2 for the back garden space, and I'm just going to pick up from where I'm standing here, going back toward the back of the property. In this video, there'll probably be a couple more. There are just a lot of pieces in this landscape, and I just wanted to, for one time, go through and just kind of name them all and talk out some of the details of each of them. So let's jump right in and get started on today's. We are heading in a direction where I have a lot of projects to do. So, you know, as this video evolves here, you'll notice that the back side of my neighbor's shed needs to be painted. I think I'm going to paint it. I got a greenhouse back here that's partially constructed. It needs work, and a backline fence back here that is, I've torn the old fence out and I've got a temporary fence in. You're gonna see all that in a minute. Those are projects that are ongoing and coming up. This is all about the things that are in the ground right now. I finished the side video here on the south-facing side, the first video for the backyard space with the sunshine ligustrum. So we'll go from here that direction, and this is again heading toward the west, which should be the hottest side of anyone's landscape. But I have a giant oak tree back here that puts this backyard space in the shade by 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so. So it's not as intense as it would be if that tree were not there. Down in the lower part of this bed, there's some Tyrannia, and this is more of a kind of a pinkish colored one with the white throat. These are, I've got them in several spaces in the landscape. In these part shade conditions, nothing really better for pollinators than Tyrannia. This hosta is called Hans, and again, I have just dozens of variegated hostas in the landscape. At some point, maybe I'll just go through and do a video specific to this one. But I really like that one. This is a Distilleum called Jewel Box. It's a newer introduction, and it's a low-growing, spreading one. It has a boxwood like habit. It has that blue-green foliage all the time, and this one, although Distilleum are definitely not known for flowering, they're in the witch hazel family, same family that Loropetalum's actually in, but the flowers are teeny tiny. This one has about the most pronounced flower I've seen on a Distilleum yet. I know that's one thing Buddy Lee and I have talked to. He introduced this one, same person that did the Encore Azaleas. That's something that we should be looking for going forward, is trying to get the flowers on these Distilleum to express themselves a little more. But again, when this one blooms in the late spring, it's probably the most colorful yet. It's a red flower along the stem. This St. Johnswort is called Brigadoon. It has this gold foliage year-round, and has been one of the most showy things in this landscape. It's such a strange thing that you would think that little St. Johnswort has been the kind of performer that it's been. It does get yellow flowers on it like other St. Johnswort, but they're very short-lived flowers, and of course a yellow flower against yellow foliage isn't going to show up, but really doesn't need to flower. Bees do absolutely love St. Johnswort when they are in flower. You know, it's great, another great thing for pollinators. This lobelia, the blue lobelia that you see along the bed edge and planted throughout spaces in this landscape, these were all done from seed, and pretty easy to do from seed every year, and big time performers. I think, again, this one's one that, this is a very sunny space that I'm showing you right now, but it's not 15 hours of sun. So if you've got an area that's about 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours of direct sun, lobelia from seed, I really don't have to think about it. It just does this thing, does its thing without me. I think that's it for the lower stuff in this area. No, there's a Hookerella that I just planted called Alabama Sunrise. This one's quite vigorous. This was in a video recently. A lot of these things you guys are seeing, if you've watched the videos, these aren't surprises to you, but I haven't done them all in a single video. But that Hookerella is called Alabama Sunrise, kind of a vigorous growing variety. Not normally a word you would use with Hookerella would be vigorous, but that one is. There are 3 Osmanthus fragrans as part of this screening for my neighbor back here. I showed an orange one in the first video for the backyard. These are just regular Osmanthus fragrans with the white flowers. Osmanthus fragrans, if you're not familiar, these are, they're not the most cold tolerant things. They're barely cold hardy here where I'm at, but they get tiny flowers along the stems that are about the most fragrant thing you could have in your garden space, and they bloom at a really odd time of year in the late fall and then again in the early spring. But great plants, great for screening. I think that if you were in an area, like I'm in zone 7B and I'm in the city and I don't have a problem with these, they're not gonna get burned here. But if you were in like zone 7A, I wouldn't put these out on the edge of your property. I'd use them as like a corner on a foundation or something like that. So otherwise they'll get burned pretty badly in the wind in the winter. This Loropetalum is, this one's called Carolina Midnight. Carolina Midnight has the purple foliage with an almost red flower. There's one called Carolina Moonlight that has white flowers. The equivalent to this one, if you could find it, would be, what is it, Red Diamond or Pink Diamond, are similar growth habits to this one. I love this plant because it has the purple pretty much all the way through it. It's a little bit green in the areas where it's not getting any light, but for the most part, this one has the coloration all the way through. This plant probably try to get 20 feet tall if I let it. Right now I've got it pruned to where it's probably 8 feet tall. I had just recently cut it down to 7 and it's recovered a foot already in just a few weeks. Amazing growth habit on that. It flowers in the late winter, early spring. Again, it's in that witch hazel family, so it has that little frilly flower that witch hazels get, but not fragrant. It will typically do some repeat flowering in the fall. Blooms on temperature change, kind of the same as that Osmanthus does. But I'll see some more flowers in the fall, but the big flowering is always in the spring, and that thing is just almost solid pinkish red for a week or two. And it was in the background of a lot of videos earlier this year when it was in flower. There are 3 Encore Azaleas. 2 are in the ground and 1 is in a container. People are going to ask me why the one is in a container. It's because I can. I just like the difference in the elevation and the height difference between them. That's a big heavy clay pot, so I can leave it outside in the wintertime without worrying about it cracking. It's not a super thin walled pot. This the first one is called Autumn Lily. It's white, probably my favorite white variety. The one in the container is Autumn Bonfire. It's a red that gets maybe 3 to 4 feet in height. Prolific blooming variety. That thing was blooming longer than any other Encore Azalea that I have in the landscape. It just blooms and blooms and blooms. And I think maybe the constricted roots in that container may actually be helping it bloom. It is budded back up again, and I think I'll start seeing some more flowers on them here in the mid to late summer, and of course again in the fall. The one down below it is Autumn Fire. It's a dwarf red. Again, it's probably Autumn Fire is probably the reddest of all the red Encore Azaleas. It's actually the one that I would look at and actually call red if it was in some sort of comparison. We do that a lot of times with red. It's really variations of pink or whatever, but that was actually red. This Nandina I really like. I didn't know if I would at the beginning. It's called Arafuku, and it's got a lobelia growing up through the middle of it. It is a variegated Nandina. This one turns bright red in the wintertime. It keeps a little bit of that orangey color even during the summertime. The oldest foliage has a variegation on it. The new growth doesn't look like it's going to have any of that variegation at all, but then it gets that variegation as it matures. I haven't touched this plant at all, and look how perfect it is without touching it. I think this plant, it might be here in 2 years. So it's kind of hard to miss with a plant that you literally have zero maintenance on. There's 2 more Osmanthus fragrans above my head to the right of this, to the right of the Loropetalum. I think I'm going to ultimately end up removing one and just have the one on each side. This one right here may become something else. I may just transplant it somewhere else. I need a screening plant or whatever. I'm limited on space in this little 2/10 of an acre lot, and I probably will find something that I want that I'll end up putting here instead. There's a Veronica on the front of the bed here. That's a Southern Living Plant Collection one called Moody Blues. I think this is Dark Moody Blues or something. I can't remember, but it's been a fantastic performer. I just moved it to that spot because I had it in a spot that was way too shady, and it has immediately responded with a ton of new growth and just blooms constantly. Pollinators absolutely love it. This is an Agapanthus behind it called Everwhite, and you can see right now this one overwintered here, and it's got 6 flower spikes on it and more coming. Some of the new breeding on these Agapanthus. Some people are concerned about, I'm in zone 7. A lot of the Agapanthus is only hardy in zone 8, some in zone 9, but some of the new, but there are varieties. Just make sure that wherever you're living that you're looking for one that's hardy in your area. Make sure it's a zone 7 hardy plant. But this Everwhite and this, I think this is Ever Sapphire, I can't remember. Both of these came back from last year. In fact, there's another volunteer here from that one that probably will be a year or so before it gets flowers on it. But again, these returned. This is a Hosta called Dancing Queen. It's just a gold, solid gold one. Again, so many Hosta in this landscape. This Monarda is called Grape Gumball. This is another one that's returning. It was planted very late last summer, and it was a tiny little plant. So this is in really its first season in the ground, and that bee is chilled on that overnight. Everything loves these Monarda. It may actually have to slide over a little bit. I'm going to have a path going through kind of where it's sitting, so it's not quite in the spot it needs to be. It needs to be tucked up in here just a little bit more. This hydrangea is called Dear Dolores. This is a remontant hydrangea, meaning it blooms on old wood, and then it will repeat bloom during the growing season. Normally, after these bloom on the first round, I just go right behind them and cut the flowers off right behind the flower. We don't want to cut on these too hard, but you can go maybe a leaf back behind the flower to the next bud, and then if you're going to get any repeat flowers, that's where they'll come from. But this thing has faded into this. It still looks like it's flowering, honestly. They're still quite beautiful, so I still haven't taken them off. But I like the foliage on this plant. It's really a compact growing variety. I think Dear Dolores definitely deserves some attention in the marketplace. Like, it's very clean, and it's flowered like mad. So I'm super impressed with it. This is I had one at the old house as well. Same thing. Just a good performer in the landscape. Behind the Dear Dolores, there's a container. This is one of the containers I got from Michael Carr Designs. Love the container. It has this, he calls this lava or something, where they allow something to flow over the side of this, and it makes this pitting around it. Beautiful container. Love it. It's heavy duty enough that it can stay outside. I'm less impressed with the things that I actually put into the container. I really like this mix of plants. This is a soft caress Mahonia. It's done fine in the container, but the other things I planted in it, I put this red coleus is called Black Diamond. It's doing okay. The gold coleus is doing fine. But these two Rex begonias are definitely underperforming. They actually look worse than when I put them into the container. I think I've just kept the container too wet, or some of the ongoing rainfall we've had. And they're actually blooming. The two begonias are blooming, but the leaves, it hasn't put on any new leaves since I put it in the container. I think if I could get it dried out, it would be fine. I just got to avoid watering this one a few times, but thus far, slightly disappointed in this container. There's some Ajuga planted here. Actually swiped this from a neighbor's space. I'm going to use it in a few places in the yard. It's kind of in storage, and there's another Hosta growing in the middle of it. The plant behind it is a podocarpus called Mood Ring, and it's called Mood Ring because all the new growth changes colors during the growing season. This one's a little bit thin. I need to do a little bit of shearing on it. It was already thin when I put it in the ground, but it needs a little bit of shearing on it. But this is a great plant if you need a screening plant in a super narrow place. You can see how the habit on it is very upright. Again, it needs a little bit of shearing. And if I was if I was really interested in getting this thing fuller, I'd probably need to just cut it in half, because down here I've got a perfect plant, and then I've got this naked spot, and then I've got this up here. I probably just need to cut it in half, and it would come back totally full without this gap in it. This was already like this in the container. Behind it, this is a Miss Scarlet Elysium. I'm going to do an Elysium video pretty soon. This plant was selected by a friend of mine over in near Gainesville, Florida, from a different group of Elysium, and he was riding past it and saw that all the flowers were right on the outside of this one. And again, if you know anything about Elysium, typically the flowers are on the interior of the plant a little bit, but this is a red flowering Elysium that wears the flowers right on the outside. Another super unique thing about this plant is, and the way I can ID it from any other group, is it has this strange little thorn on the tip of every leaf, and I hope that will show up on camera. But there's a little thorn, and every single leaf has it, and they're not prickly. They're not actually prickly, but it's got some sort of strange little curl on the end of the leaf, and this little thorn sticks out right there. It's kind of a curiosity because I haven't seen it. I don't see it on other varieties, but this is a fantastic screening plant. It's a red flowering Elysium. Again, the flowers are on the outside. I think that this plant's going to sell in the millions. Elysium is super underused just in general. I have 3 in this landscape, and we'll probably end up with more as I evolve this back line where this fence is going in. This fence right here is also being replaced in the future as well. This is another plant that hasn't been released yet. This one, this is a holly called Screenplay, and I visit a lot of nurseries, and I've told a lot of nurserymen they should be growing this plant, and I hope they will. One of the problems when you're introducing something like an upright growing holly like this is there's so many varieties in the marketplace. When you have 7 different upright hollies on your list already, it's a little hard to make a decision to add another one. This may be the fastest growing upright holly though I've ever seen. This plant will put on 3 feet of growth in the first season in the ground. It's already, since I planted it here, from where it was pruned, it's grown 15, 16 inches in this space. This is the most ignored space in this landscape so far, so it hasn't really even been watered. Super, super fast growing. And Screenplay is the perfect name for it. I think it's going to be a big seller in the marketplace, but it may take a little while for people to, for nurserymen to, again, add a plant when they have that many upright hollies already. Super upright, perfectly vertical growth on it, so it's going to be a great screening plant in a narrow space. So again, this was just a metal shed that I took this, took the metal off of and left the frame, and I put a shade cloth over the top of it. It's going to have a wooden frame around the base of it, and it's going to actually have a cedar side that goes up to where that shade cloth starts. Lumber so much right now that I've avoided my lumber projects, but that's what you're seeing in the background there. It eventually will be a nice finished project, and there's a path that's going to go right through here to get to this back path that I have in the landscape. This is a gold Wygelia. I've got it in a space where it's getting lots of sunlight, maybe from about 10 till about 1, and then that oak tree is putting it into the shade here in the south. There's no way I could grow this gold foliage Wygelia without in the full sun. It would definitely be burning, and it burned some anyway. And it's been cut back recently, put on that new growth. Looks fantastic. Just a great gold addition to the landscape. There is a variegated Hydrangea Paniculata right here, and I'm not going to cover white wedding in this video, but that's a Hydrangea Paniculata. Limelight is a Hydrangea Paniculata. This one is a variegated one. I have not seen it bloom, and so we're not going to call this hydrangea an impressive flowering plant. And Hydrangea Paniculatas bloom on new growth, so the fact that it has new growth should mean it would have flowers on it if it was going to flower. So I may see flowers at some point, but really it's just being grown for this beautiful variegated foliage, which is different on every single stem on the plant. Really quite a beautiful plant. And it ultimately is going to get probably 6 or 8 feet tall back here in the background of everything else. It's kind of hidden at this moment. There's a Salvia next to it called Rhythm and Blues. Maybe the most popular thing in this landscape with the hummingbirds right this minute. They come and sit. They come and sample these and probably are annoyed with me right now. I've talked about this several times with many of the Salvia, especially newer introductions, that the calyx on this one is almost black. And so you have this super, super dark purple flower and then a black calyx, and that bee is going to come to that flower while I'm holding it. That is the coolest thing. I could feel the wind from his wings. That was kind of funny. But this one's called Rhythm and Blues. There's a ton of these really dark purple salvias that look so similar, and they even have similar names. This weeping Deodor cedar is called Feeling Blue. Talked about it in a video recently that it wasn't in the best of shape when it went into the ground, but it's got a ton of new growth on it. Even since I shot that last month or 6 or 8 weeks ago when I talked about it the last time, it looks better than it did at that time. I think within another growing season, this one will look perfect again. But this will get whatever size I want to allow it to. I've seen these 6 or 8 feet tall and 15 feet wide, and I've seen them kept, less than 3 feet in height. So this is kind of you can prune it however you want to prune it, kind of a plant. Let's see, moving forward, for the second year in a row, I'm drowning this Touch of Gold holly. I had it here. I had some hibiscus lay on it last year and it turned green. The new growth came on it this year and was yellow, and now my marigolds because Hurricane Elsa, or Tropical Storm Elsa, laid the marigolds down on top of it. I'm probably going to lose a little color again, but I love these marigolds, so I'm not going to worry about it. It's no big deal. It'll get sun again and it'll be yellow again after that. The container behind it has a blue Atlas Mountain palm in it. I did a video on this palm when I put it into the container. If you want to go back and take a look at that, it's underplanted with some vinca that's probably not getting quite enough light back here. But look at the new blue growth on this palm. It's in a container I talked about in yesterday's or the last part of this tour video. That my palms are in containers. This one's probably hardy in any kind of normal winter in the ground in my area, but I don't trust that. And I want to keep this palm. The person who gave it to me is the same person who introduced that this Scarlet Elysium that is in this video. The last couple things I'll cover in this video. This is this Powwow wildberry coneflower. First flower I've seen on it. They'll be much larger. The ones that are coming behind it, but they're planted inside of these pentas. There are purple and kind of a reddish color, pink, white pentas planted in this area. Pentas are like one of the easiest flowering things for the pollinators, and they've been pruned one time. And I put up a video about tip pruning all of your annuals and perennials early on so you get more fuller plants later in the season. That was the last time and the only time these have been snipped. So these are just giving and giving and giving without really any input from me whatsoever. They were only fertilized once. There's a bee sleeping on this one. Pollinators are on these just all day long. So just super, super easy. These giant marigolds that are planted behind them were done from seed. I didn't mention that when I just said that the marigolds were laying on top of the Touch of Gold holly, but all these giant marigolds I do from seed. This seed comes from Johnny Seed. There's probably plenty of other places where you could get these giant marigolds. The first few during the season are interesting because they're like this big and you're like, what is wrong with these things? But over the course of the season, they just get larger and larger and larger as the plants mature. I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'll start with this Grand Cascade butterfly bush and the white wedding hydrangeas in the next video and continue around. Thank you guys for following along with these very detailed videos. I just want to, at least one series of videos at some point where I show literally just every plant that's in the landscape. Again, thanks for following along, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel because I'll have the additional videos up pretty soon. Thanks for watching.